What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Food Stories. It's official, episode number 2. It's a thing now. Thank you for being here to learn more about where our food comes from through the stories of the people along the journey from field to plate. I am so excited today. We've got a really special episode for you with Rachael Jones of Locavore Farm. Her and her husband Christopher are the founders of this farm, but before that, they were living in the Chicago suburbs and they were desiring to move to a more rural landscape where they could truly slow down and be able to steward the land and take care of their family in that way. And Rachael had mentioned in our conversation that she's always been an event planner. They've always kind of been the party family and hosted gatherings. But what they didn't know then was that they would marry their gift of hosting and their newfound mission of ecological farming to put together Locavore Farm, a place where people can truly eat local. And not only that, but also to gather and to slow down together in a most beautiful and serene landscape, just teeming with life. They accomplish this on a weekly basis through their farm to table dining events. My family and I were able to attend one of the Thursday evening gatherings, and it was absolutely incredible. It had everything that I had dreamed of and more to offer. First of all, the food was outstanding. The person playing the music really created a fun and inviting ambiance. Shout outs to Logan Miller. You know, my niece got to run around and laugh at the animals. She just was loving the pigs and the chickens, the whole thing. It was truly a summer evening to remember. And we'll be back next season for sure. I found this conversation to be very interesting for many reasons. But one of the things that really stuck with me that Rachael had said was that by growing the food that they use for these farm-to-table events, they really stay with the details of the event planning, literally at their origin, at the stage of the seed. And then they follow that detail all the way to the end, ultimately feeding 100 people at every event. And they do this ecologically. So if you are at all interested in homesteading, slowing down, farm-to-table gatherings, entrepreneurship, ecological stewardship, stay tuned for this amazing conversation with Rachael Jones of Locavore Farm in Grant Park, Illinois. And if you're interested in attending one of their events, taking one of their amazing hands-on classes and workshops for adults and kids, or glamping in their 100-year-old farmhouse, check out their website, link in the show notes. Without further ado, Food Stories Episode 2 with Rachael Jones of Locavore Farm. Am I correct to say, so you and Chris, you were living in a metropolitan area when you decided that you wanted to move out to the country, is that right?
Yeah, we were living in the suburbs of Chicago, and it's only about Homewood, the village of Homewood, only is about 23 miles north of here. And a suburban area. Before that, we lived in Chicago, and before that, we were a military couple, so we lived on both East and West coasts.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. And did you know at this time when you were living in the Chicago suburbs, did you know that you would be giving birth to Locavore when you were dreaming up that you wanted to slow down and live out kind of the farm and homesteading experience? Were you just thinking about that for your family, or were you already starting to think about how you could turn this into something more than that even?
No, actually, we were definitely looking to just homestead and utilize our land to support us as a family and then possibly do something with the surplus. I mean, the dream was for us to work together with our kids on the land and the land to be, you know, capable of caring for us, you know, as we steward. So that was just the very loose vision. It was definitely purposeful in terms of, okay, so, you know, we want to be able to steward a land that will in turn be where we work together and are supported. But how to get there is something that required, you know, just kind of taking us one step at a time. And also for us, it was like, it wasn't until we were in our space and we were really we were slowed down. We weren't in the bustle and the hustle. And we knew that we wanted to grow food. And there's that natural tendency to think, well, then we'll be doing farmers markets or a farm stand or find restaurants, just the standard way. And but that's when we found ourselves thoroughly enjoying just the country, the rural landscape, the beauty of being outside,
Hmm.
the joy of like walking through, the garden that you just planted and harvesting. And then it was like, again, back to our roots as a couple, which is we are the couple that hosts all the dinner parties and host the birthday parties. We are the party family.
Mhm.
And it was like, okay, so is it possible that the work ahead for us literally braids all of our passions together, which is being with people, uh, creating experiences, growing food, gardening, farming with our hands, getting our hands dirty, because everywhere we went from where we lived, either in an urban or suburban setting, we were always growing things in pots, raised beds in the ground, from fire escapes, you name it. We've always grown. So when we really stepped into our space and we're in it, we'd already taken the brave step of leaving a comfortable lifestyle to an unknown rural space. One thing that I really do believe is that dreams unfold as you take those steps forward.
Yes.
I think there's something very special about the dream and the story of someone when they've stepped out in it and it has become visible as they've moved forward, versus I sat back, I planned it all out, I made sure I had all my resources, I
Right.
made sure I had my whole plan, and I'm going to stick with it, and then I'm moving forward. You know what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
there's something about that approach to an adventure that I think makes it a good one.
Oh, that's so magical. Thank you for sharing that. That's really, really cool. So at this point, you're on land in Grant Park. I know you've talked about this a lot, that the 100-seat table was kind of the inspiration in a lot of ways. Is that sort of when the idea of Locavore, like the name, kind of came into the picture?
Yeah, so I think I remember, again, when we just moved out there. I had talked with a friend about, oh my gosh, I want to do a dinner party out here. This is again just an idea of a
Yeah,
dinner party, almost like an open house. We've moved out to the country,
right.
and she did art markets, like vintage markets and fairs, and she said, I'd love to do one of our markets there.
Oh,
And
wow.
I said, oh, that's cool. And so that kind of floated around. And at the same time, we were thinking through our agricultural operation of, okay, we're planting our garden. What are we doing? And okay, this looks to be about how much food we'll do and all of that. And I said, do you really want to do farmers markets? I said, because I'd actually been a part of managing and planning a farmers market and when back at my old job. And I said, I see those farmers, they show up 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, their kids are with them,
Yeah.
everything's harvested. And if the farmers market's not properly marketed,
Mhm.
if foot traffic's low, if there's a competitor, they're throwing that produce away or giving it away by the end of the market. And I just thought, I just don't want to burn every Saturday that way, standing in a parking lot.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
so again, I think we were eating dinner at our table, and I was thinking of our table and an image that I had seen. In fact, it was a Time magazine article, I believe, back in 98 or 99, and it was Outstanding in the Field. And they have, I forgot the name of the artist right now, but I could definitely find him. But I thought, oh my gosh, he sets these tables in these places where, there's, all around the world. And it's just so gorgeous. And I remember looking at that and saying, that is just a dream. And I think it was foreshadowing because I kept that little piece of newspaper, that page I had torn out. And when I told Chris, I said, instead of the farmers markets, let's just stay committed to the table. If we build a table to the market size that we want, and we focus on each one of those seats. We grow flowers for those seats, for that table. We grow food for that table. Add a course. There's another ingredient that we're growing. There's another, okay, meat. Now, okay, then we're going to, focus on filling those seats, promoting and getting that table fill, and then feeding that table, that's the sum total of our operation. So our eyes never leave the land. We're dedicated to what the land can produce, not just for our family, but for this table, this group and unique gathering of people. Every time we blow the whistle and say it's open, anytime we ring the dinner bell, you know what I mean? And so that really was, when things began to come together. And I shared with my friend, okay, yeah, let's do your market here. And I want to introduce people to a table. And it was like, okay, are we Jones Family Farm? What are we, And I just remember really understanding the locavore movement, and this, people were getting into this slow, just starting to hear the word slow, even though it was like bursting from all of our hearts. We were begging someone to like actually say slow down,
Yeah.
And I remember, saying, gosh, we should be called Locavore Farm, because there's nothing more local than eating the food that's literally steps from where you're consuming it. And so that's when Locavore Farm was, I guess coined or founded, was when we decided that we would say, this is truly a locavore's table, so we'll be Locavore Farm. And that's how it came together. So we threw down that first event, that was my friend's market, and we just did a showing, or rather like a preview of what our dinners would look like, by just doing one course at the table, but we did it 4 times, 12, 2, 4, and 6 p.m.
Wow.
We had 100 people each time. So we fed 400 people at the table that day as our like intro. And it was very unique for people. I mean, the farm to table thing wasn't really happening here in the Midwest. And they're definitely not within the Chicagoland area here, and definitely not in Kankakee County.
No.
So it was, I thought it was going to be a harder sale. But it was not. It was a good, people got it, and they keep getting it because it's something that they desire.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm one of those people, because when I heard the name Locavore and I saw farm to table dinner, I stopped in my tracks and I said, in my hometown, this is what I've been saying, ever since I discovered, good locally grown food. I've been just saying it every time I come back to visit. Man, we really need an organic producer here.
Yes.
And not just that, but a way to really inspire people of its value.
Yes, I've
Yeah.
agreed.
Yeah. So thank you for your work. Thank you for doing that. And it was really awesome that I was able to be a part of it, and I hope to
Yeah.
come back. Oh,
Wonderful.
so we talked kind of about the birth of Locavore. Now, a little bit into sort of the transformation of Locavore as you moved. So was the first place, was it 5 acres? Am I getting that about right, or?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay, so how has your farming transformed from the smaller property to this sprawling 30 acres? Can you kind of get into some of the practices that make your farm regenerative? And what do you plan on doing with all of that land, or continuing to do with all that land?
Yeah, so what's really important to us, and as we started off just organic row cropping, and we thought that was great and good. Here's food for us to consume
Mm,
that's, being farmed organically. We're not putting the harsh chemicals on there. We thought that was enough.
mm,
But then you can't help but then look at the ecosystem that you're working within and realize that you're still supporting very much the conventional application of farming.
mm,
You're definitely still working within that system. It's
mm.
tons of plastics, and it's all annual, and
Yeah.
you're adding to it by bringing something else in, instead of setting up permanent agricultural systems that are based or built upon establishing diverse ecosystems within the same space, to where you can create, life. You can, well, you're bringing in life, because that is required. So for us, it was like, okay, we're ripping up plastic every year, we're putting down plastic every year, we've got these crops going in and this going out, and it's like there's got to be more. And when you look at many of the areas that are unfarmed, just their fertility is through the roof. So
Yeah.
it's like, can we participate more? Can we embrace more in what nature is doing itself? And that's not saying the earth doesn't want a cultivator and a steward, because it desperately needs it. It's designed to have a steward, a cultivator, and that's our job. But working more in tandem, working alongside nature's systems. So for example, it's like living roots in the ground year round. That's key, and making sure that underground soil web is taken care of, in order to produce food that's nutrient dense. And then also just the one of the components of permaculture is having these permanent food systems like a food forest. So it's even changing the type of foods we desire and put on the table. We call it unfarmed food, like a lot of the wild berries and the different foods that we can put out there, or food that produces each year. So obviously fruits and nuts and berries, that we can have. So we really wanted to create more of a permanent agricultural farm. Okay, sorry, I'm trailing off here because my kids are all swimming in the pond there, and sorry, there's a
No
couple.
problem. No problem at all.
They're bouncing all over the place. So I was just making sure that they were safe.
Totally understand.
But yeah, it was very important to us and very appealing to us to explore permanent agricultural systems, and how can we do that, and how can we marry those to obviously annual crop growing, which is where your tomatoes and lettuces and all those wonderful vegetables come in. But how can we do that with also having the framework of systems that last season over season, where we're building and adding to? So that's where you see a lot of the native prairies that we've added to the farm here, and obviously our 2 million-gallon pond that is collecting the water. So it's a reservoir, but also we have spillways and plantings that allow the water to course through the property, but get filtered and cleaned through along the way. We have our front 20 acres that we recently planted annual and perennial grasses. And in the fall, our fencing will go up so that we can introduce livestock. But we also have an agroforestry program that's going to allow us to not only produce, but get those living roots in the ground and, create, again, our own microclimate here on the 30 acres and actually the surrounding acres as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. That sounds like a permaculture paradise is one way to put it.
Yes.
And it's
Well, permaculture is where you're mixing ecology with agriculture, and then just actual like landscape design, so you're combining all three of those together. And I think that that's the way we should approach the way we establish land, the way we cultivate land, is from an ecological standpoint, from a production standpoint, and then from a conservation standpoint, and then also in terms of design. Because if you follow nature's patterns, a lot of times you're addressing many of the logistic components that allow us to work smarter, not harder.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Did you come upon the study of permaculture after you had already started your homesteading adventure, or was it something back when you were in the city that you had already known about?
It was actually afterwards. In
Yeah.
2016, I was introduced to Bill Wilson, who's with Midwest Permaculture. In 2016, he
Oh.
came to one of our events that we put on, which was the Heal the Planet Festival. And we introduced, we had an author there, Jordan Rubin, who'd authored a Heal the Planet book. And we hosted him with a large event that had many producers, and farmers who all farm, organically, or, who had this mindset. We had beekeepers, everything, you name it.
Yeah.
And Bill from Midwest Permaculture was there, and he's been doing permaculture courses there since permacultures and certifying people in permaculture through his 72-hour course for years. And we connected with him right away, and he was just he was walking through our gardens and, you know, appreciating just the hard work of a seasonal, you know, of us growing in a season. And he's like, kind of posed the question, have you heard about permaculture? You know,
Yeah.
and how permaculture has so many things, you know, it addresses so many things outside of just production, but it has to do with just an approach to life, really.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I discovered permaculture when I was out here in California, and I went
Mhm.
through a permaculture design certification
Yes. Yeah.
course myself. So it really has changed the way that I look at things. It's, you know, it's almost like a living, breathing transmission
Yes.
you carry with you, and it affects the way that you know, inside your home, outside your home,
Yes.
everything.
Absolutely. Yep, that's exactly right. And we do. We love the principles of permaculture. We, you know, definitely apply those to life in terms of like working with nature and not against it. I love the whole like value your edges, the marginal and the small,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
That is a wonderful application to life, as well as literally looking at where you're planting food, where you're setting up these systems, you
Yes.
know, producing no waste, valuing people and their skills and work. I mean, these are ways in which you design and build your farm and production systems, but it's also the way you relate to people and the world around you, you know, respect for all life, you know. It's just, you know, you want to do that in farming. I mean, for us, we see the symbiotic relationship between the beasts and the vegetation, right? So
Mhm.
it's like they need one another. What my cow and what the cows can do in terms of grazing is substantial in terms of soil restoration. And in turn, then vegetation sprouts out healthier and more nutrient dense. And so there's this, you know, and then they're producing a better plant for them, you know, the cattle to graze once again. So there's this beautiful relationship that we recognize.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And another permaculture concept of stacking functions
Mm-hmm.
reminds me of one of my last questions here for you,
Okay.
having to do with your workshops. So it's
Oh yeah.
your stacking function, you know, here as a regenerative farm and ecosystem, a place for community, a place to feed people, and now a place to learn as well. I just think that's in true permaculture fashion, that you're offering this another dimension of what you're able to do. The adult classes as well. But what has it been like to have people come and learn on the land?
Well, what I love is it's the next step. You get inspired at the table when you come and dine on the land. You are inspired through the farm tour. You're beginning to have this experience where you're looking at your own life and saying, what more can I get out of my life, right? And for some people, they could be as crazy as I'm heading off, I'm selling my urban, suburban a
Yeah.
home or property, and I'm going to head out to the farm. But for others, it may look differently. Either way, it beckons an adventure. It beckons you to evaluate if you're living life to its fullest, right? So from the table, there's this opportunity then to say, hey, you've been inspired. Now let's learn together, you know. And for us, I really feel like a lot of our work is combating just the damage of the digital age, you
Mm.
know, and many of the other components of our culture, which I feel has really weakened our human connections and also our connection to nature. And so instead of an online course, let's say that you can definitely get all of the knowledge components,
Mhm.
we like to provide a learning experience face to face, shoulder to shoulder, hand to hand
Mhm.
in the same location. So that people who have been doing it just a little bit longer, meaning they've taken what they were interested in and they've been doing it a little bit longer, and they've gone through many of the you know um, the learning curve and all of that. they can share that then with someone. And there's, again, something about learning in community, I think is really important, because there's beyond the, the curriculum, right? You go beyond the actual technique. You start being able to see it unfolding in other people's lives, and then that then can, show you where it traces back into yours. So the courses that we offer are everything from people learning how to weld, handicrafts, herbal medicine, mycology, food preservation, food preparation, butchering, smoking, you name it, permaculture design as well. We offer a 72-hour certification program through Midwest Permaculture here at Locavore Farm, and that's just part of what Locavore U offers as well. And we also are currently rebuilding our other location, our original location, to the homestead that it is, and we're offering extended learning experiences where a family can actually come and stay for a week or a couple weeks and actually go through a curriculum that allows them daily hands-on application, working alongside my family. And that way, for any of those, which I wish we had, to be honest, an opportunity to take that, idea or take that desire and then go somewhere and really start to say, this is what this looks like, this is what this feels like. And so that's something else that we're offering. But yeah, our Locavore U classes, they're courses that are filled with everything that you can do to be self-reliant. And it's also about just closing the skills gap. So for us, farm camp, which is geared towards kids, is really important. A lot of those extracurricular courses have been dropped from the educational programs. A lot of kids are also being homeschooled. So this allows us to introduce all of these very cool skills that may help build or add to their dreams of what they could be when they're older, and kind of look outside the traditional path and say, hey, these are jobs that people have had forever, and they are beneficial and they are fulfilling and they can support me and a family. And so for us, it's about exposing kids to that. Obviously, getting kids in nature where, let's face it, on average now, kids are spending less than 15 minutes outside with unstructured play due to the breakdown of the digital age, the accessibility of screens and entertainment. So for us, it's getting kids back into nature, and we also want them to have unstructured time. So we build in a lot of time for kids to be able to slow down and connect and just let themselves. I don't want to say bored, because I've never seen a kid bored here. In fact, I'm hearing screams from kids who are splashing in the pond right now and running around the prairie. But what you do with that time that's unstructured is ideas start to come about. And that's what we want. We need to allow time for ideas. We need to allow time for self-reflection, where it's not necessarily another personality cramming their brand down my throat, to where I'm readjusting myself. And that's what I find these kids are doing, is they're emulating everything that they're seeing. And instead, they're not taking that time to be able to say, well, what about me? And how do I fit in this world? You know what I mean? And how can I be a contributor, not an influencer, a contributor,
Yeah.
So our farm camps do that. And we do it for young and old alike, and every literal skill you could imagine. We invite those instructors. We have an amazing community of instructors. And again, like I said, these are all people who are just a little bit further along.
Yeah.
And that makes the learning experience very rich.
Absolutely. Wow. Thank you so much, Rachel. All of that was amazing to hear about. I appreciate you sharing all of that. Before we kind of wrap it up and close out here, I know you talked about how you're turning your 5-acre home into another learning experience hands-on. That sounds really cool. Is there any other things that are kind of new on the horizon, or just kind of continuing with what you've built out recently?
Well, we are excited about a few things. A couple of those. One, We are actually implementing our full permaculture plan for the property. So you'll be seeing a lot more earthwork, a lot more plantings, a lot more, water reservoirs and different spaces created here. And we have these kind of like signs all around the property where you can see what they're going to look like. And so those are really underway here in the fall and spring of next year. We are really excited about, we are partnering up with groups, and we have already begun supplying prescription food boxes, which has been great. And that is where people are able to meet with health providers and learn how food is medicine. And then we're able to actually produce for those people who are looking to improve their health. And so we'll be increasing in production as well in terms of food that's being sent off the farm. And then again, augmenting and adding to the learning experiences here. We recently introduced our non-for-profit arm, which is going to allow us to offer the educational programs and also food supply to those who just absolutely would never be able to either purchase a class or a camp on their own. Wow. Or be able to afford one of our weekly farm boxes. And so our non-for-profit now, our 501c3, our ministry arm of Locavore Farm, which is the Locavore Farm Project, allows people who've sat at the table and experienced this for themselves. It allows them to sponsor another who wouldn't be able to afford that seat at the table, or that enroll in that camp, or build that particular skill, or come tour the farm, or even take a weekly farm basket. So we found just an incredible community that does come here, that's attracted to come here, and they want to do more. They don't necessarily want to be a farmer, but they do want to grow, and they want to see this type of agrarian society make a return.
Yeah.